No, that's just like to call it to order. Thank y'all. I'd like to call this week to order the Board of Directors of the Central Midlands Council of Governments, Thursday, February 24th, in Central College. We are glad y'all are here. And I first want to thank, we have determined today that the COG's best friend is Midlands Tech. They have just done an outstanding job for us. And today we want to particularly thank our technical host, who are very skilled, Michael Zambardino. Thank you, Michael. And Lauren Emma. Thank you, Lauren. Let me give y'all a round of applause, please. Here. Great. It's such a good friend of the COG. Let us be here and spread out. I think it works well, especially with the outstanding electronics y'all have. And so thank y'all. And we're glad to be here today. We're going to continue the meeting. Exactly right. Yeah, we're continuing to meet here. We have, is that this campus then?
Yes, sir.
In the same room through June. So we'll see, they'll let us in next semester, but we've at least qualified for the spring semester. How about that? All right, so we're going to keep on going down the list, just not taking action yet. We have a quorum. So I'm going to ask Mr. Smokey Davis to have an invocation, please, sir.
If you will join me in prayer. Our Heavenly Father, we are so grateful for this organization. We're so grateful for our community. We thank you for loving us. Help this food to nourish us. Give us strength in everything we decide. In Christ's name we pray. Amen.
Thank you, sir. All right, Ben and I talked about introduction of new board members because we have some new board members coming on. So we put it on the agenda, but then we don't have the official letters, and we didn't think we would. So we'll have some new board members we feel next month once the different government agencies send in their official letters. And of course, the new board members next month. All right, Chairman's introduction. Ben, are you ready for that? Or are you still working on the quorum? All right, Chairman's introduction. Good news from the COG. Ben, take it away, please.
Actually, I have quite a bit of good news this month. In our workforce program, we're currently accepting applications for the Department of Worker Training Programs. This is a program that assists businesses to increase the skills of their existing workforce. You can find information about this on the Midlands Workforce Development's webpage, and the funding round is due by Friday, March 3rd. And Chris White is our program director of that program.
Thank you, Chris.
In the ombudsman program, Ms. Anna Harmon and Victoria over here to the left of me are working, actually going to have some training for the volunteer program. This is going to be Zoom training. Victoria is going to be the contact person for that. We have that scheduled for March 15th, part 1, and March 29th, part 2. And then a secondary training on April the 12th and the 26th. And we always ask folks to volunteer. It helps our ombudsman program so much because they can go into facilities to basically take a good close look at what's going on. These trained ombudsman volunteers then can come back and report to our staff about something that they see if something doesn't look right, and then our staff will go out and do an investigation.
Man, I think before you have made like a Facebook post about this.
You found it okay.
Huh?
I said you found it okay.
Oh, yeah.
And then all of our folks share that.
You weren't busy yet. So.
I'm just sending them, I'm gonna send you an invite for the meeting after Layla's and Michelle C. And let's work on bell notification.
We're going to ask our folks online, please mute. Thank you.
In the aging program, Senior Resources, one of our contracted service providers, has launched a new pilot program in the City of Columbia Parks and Recreation Program at the Catherine M. Belfield, Brooker, Washington Heights Cultural Arts Center to provide group dining on Mondays and Wednesdays for seniors in the community. The city staff provides activities for the seniors, and then Senior Resources provides the meals and nutrition education covered through the Department on Aging that we receive funding for. If the pilot program is successful, we plan to expand to other areas around Columbia. Okay, that's great news. The Newberry County Council on Aging has also hired a new staff person to oversee home care and adult daycare department. This is Ms. Hyatt. She's an RN, and she's also a resident of Newberry County. In addition, with the closing of the only grocery store in the Whitmire area, Newberry County Council on Aging has placed a larger vehicle into service, provide essential trips on Fridays, and set up a ride by calling that number I have there. I believe that is the Newberry County Council on Aging number.
And Lynn Stockton is here. Lynn, how about stand, please? She has the Newberry County Council on Aging. She really stepped up. The one grocery store, y'all probably saw the news. So, closed in Whitmire. It's a difficult situation, but Lynn's now running a bus from the town of Whitmire, 15 miles to. Great. But really stepped up, and y'all might have seen you on these. And thanks for joining us. and Thanks for what you're doing. Ben, thanks, sir.
Okay, a couple other things real quickly. Also, Newberry County Council on Aging and Fairfield County Council on Aging, in conjunction working with the Central Valley Council of Governments, Gregory Sprouse helped write a CDBG grant for meals, home delivered meals on weekends. These are going to be starting in the month of May. Each county will distribute about 200 meals. And this should last about 8 weeks, so we're real excited about that program. And then finally, in our planning department, I mentioned this before, the Congaree Biosphere Region developed a short film, a marketing film that identifies all the unique resources, the history of the lower Richland County area and the Congaree National Park. This is going to be coming out sometime in April. And the partner agencies that are working on this are Central Midlands, South Carolina National Guard, the Southeast Rural Community Outreach Program. And you can find out more information about this on the National Park website, where you can contact our staff here in Vista.
Good stuff, Ben, and that's slideshow you presented us will be emailed to everybody so they can follow up and read. And let's just give the staff, please, a round of applause for all the good work going on. Each month, go around regional spotlight to highlight one of our member counties or cities, and we're glad to have Mr. Paul Livingston from Richland County. Going to tell us some things going on in Richland County, and we are glad to have you. Tell us.
We'll just simply happy to get some internal things accomplished in the last 2 months. What I mean by land development code rewrite, quite a task. We go through 3 readings with that one. And we're trying to complete the mapping of that down. So that was a big challenge for us, and we got to that point with that. So excited about that. You know, all went through redistricting. I'm happy to say that our council went through that process and came out with all council members reporting what we came up with. There's a little discontent from our community, so that process was well. That was a great challenge. Probably had one of our better retreats, this past month. We took a trip to Greenville. In each year we have a retreat, we try to focus on one thing, whether it's transportation, development, whatever. And sometimes when we do that, we choose where we go for the retreat based on what are our main objectives for that year. And one of the main objectives this time was economic development. And so we wanted to go to Greenville, so we can also meet with them and talk to them about what's happening for development in Greenville. So we were able to meet with, we got a presentation from their the director of their economic development from the corporation, as well as the couple council members who spoke with us. So that was very optimistic with them. The thing that's most dear to me that happened is that we elected a new chair. So I would no longer have to do it.
Congratulations.
And now the chairman, so Walker did a great job. So I'm excited about that. So some kind of things that's going on.
Mr. Livingston, we appreciate that update. Good stuff. And congratulations on the good things going on. We can all learn from that. I appreciate it. Talk about retreat in specific. That's something we need to do with Newberry. Picking a topic. That's good. All right. Just a couple things from around the region that I wanted to lift out. I tell you what, I hope y'all are excited as me that she's been mentioned, Judge Michelle Childs of the Supreme Court. What a great coup that was. He is just to be in the Final Four for South Carolina. South Carolinian. I don't know the judges, and was not familiar with her before. What a great resume and career she's had.
I can tell you, I know her personally.
Oh, do you good?
And she is a phenomenal choice for that. She's unbelievable lady.
Well, great. Well, how about pass along
I
that
heard that.
the Council of Governments, the Midlands are very proud her to be there, and that we all heard that she is selected. So that was just really neat. And
And while we're at it,
yes, sir.
we need to give credit to Jim Clyburn,
Right?
because if he wasn't where he is, nobody would have ever heard of Michelle Chapman.
That's right. And that was good credit to the South Carolina Midlands, but Carolina, boy, that's be a great coup for Carolina as well. Economic announcements, Bentley Boats is expanding its operations in Lexington County and adding 50 jobs. And I like sports news. There are a bunch of high school basketball teams locally in state semifinals, multiple Midlands teams. And I read that Gigi Jackson of Ridgeview was rated the #1 player in the nation by some experts in the junior class. So anyway, I thought that was really neat. All right, so that's just some regional highlights. Mr. Tory, we get a form. Now we're about too short. All right, well, y'all can think of somebody, call them. That'd be great. Let's go to announcements, committee or staff reports. Ben, what do you think? That's not an action item. And really, if y'all can think of somebody, how about call? We'll put them on speakerphone or something. Who, we have one person listed on iPhone without a name identified. We have the phone number, Ben?
I'm not sure.
If somebody's online. All right, we'll keep working on it. Mr. Ledbetter, if you don't mind, if you're ready, let's go to item D1, project development overview and project status update. Is Mr. Ledbetter online, can speak up, please, sir?
Yes, sir.
Great. All right, Mr. Ledbetter is with SCDOT. He's been there 7 years, and he is the CMCOG and COG MPO Assistant Program Manager. Mr. Ledbetter, thanks for what you do, and thanks for giving us a project development overview and project status update.
Yes, sir. Thanks for having me. So again, my name is Darren Ledbetter. I'm Assistant Program Manager. And today I'm just going to give a few updates about some projects that we have going on in the Coach CMCOG area. So we'll discuss some common acronyms. I kind of asked to provide some of those to you. Then we'll discuss some coach widenings, intersections, and interchanges, as well as bridge replacement projects, and then interstate rehab and widening projects. So some of the things you'll see today, I'm sorry?
Go ahead, I'm sorry. My fault.
So some of the things you'll see today, you'll see on some of the slides, there's going to be PE, RW, ROW, CE, and IMR, CE. And this is kind of a list of what all of those things mean. So PE stands for preliminary engineering. That is the process where we design all of our plans. So all the way from initial project conception all the way to construction. That's that phase of funding that we have. And then RW or ROW is right of way. This entails all of the actions that we have for right of way acquisition or obtaining permissions when we're starting a project. CE and I may speak about that a little bit. That's construction engineering and inspection. So once a project goes to construction and is being built, that's for our inspectors to QC, QA, quality control, and quality assure that the materials installed are what's being paid for. You'll see IMR, which is interchange modification report. It's a federal document that's given to FHWA for interchanges that are being modified on the interstate system, as well as CE, which is categorical exclusion. And this is another federal document that is part of the NEPA process. Hardscrabble Road widening, construction is underway, and our current completion date is August of 2022, which is the fall of this year. Leesburg Road widening, we let the project late last year, and we're anticipating it to start here in the next few months. So spring of 2022 is when we should see construction beginning. S48 widening, the right-of-way acquisition phase, it began this year. So in the next month or two, we should start right away on it. And construction is anticipated to begin in late 23 or early 24. Our US 1 widening phase 3 project, construction is currently underway, and we anticipate it to be completed summer of 2022. So this shows all of our preliminary engineering funding for all of the projects. Our expenditures are not over our obligations, so we're looking good for PE funding. Right-of-way funded is the same way. I would like to point out for S48, we have an estimated cost there because we haven't started the right-of-way phase. So we haven't started expending those funds, but we're expecting that our estimated costs won't be over what we have obligated towards the project. And here's our construction funding breakdown. So Leesburg and S48 construction hasn't began on those yet. So again, those are estimated costs, but they're roughly in line with what our expected cost obligations are. The Leesburg at Patricia Drive intersection. The project was let in November of 21 with the Leesburg Road widening project. So they're kind of let together. One contractor's doing both portions of the project. We're anticipating them starting in the next few months. Here is our PE funding. Currently, our expenditures are not over our obligations, and we're getting close to being completed with the PE phase. These are our right-of-way obligations and expenditures. There may be concern that those are equal, but the right-of-way phase is complete, so we don't expect any more expenditures. And then here's our construction funding as well. Again, those are estimated costs since we haven't started expending any funds for the project just yet. Exit 119, which is US 21 that crosses over I-26. The project is to reconfigure the existing interchange there. The IMR&C document had been approved by FHWA. Right-of-way acquisition began about a year ago, February of 2021, and then we anticipate to let the project the end of this year, so August of 22. Here's a list of some of our bridge replacements. US 1 over CSX is letting fall of last year. 378 over Horse and Hollow is almost complete. It's under construction. As far as I'm aware, we're doing final punch list items. And then SC 555 over SCO Railroad, the right-of-way began in November of 2020, and it's expected to let in the late fall of 2024. And then 21 over Congaree Creek, right-of-way acquisition has started, and it started September of last year. For our bridge replacement schedule, just kind of continuing on. 34 over Norfolk Southern, that's in Newberry. It let October of 2021. And then for the I-126 over SCL, 176, which is River Drive over in Earlwood over SCL, and then 21 over Southern and SCL railroads. The design is underway for all of those. And we do expect the Blossom Street Road to let fall of 2023. For our interstate rehab schedule, we have two sections. So we have 26 from 60 to 75 and then 75 to 85. 60 to 75, I'm sorry, is under construction, and then 75 to 85 is expected to start second quarter of 2022. So the next few months, we should see a construction letting for the project. For our interstate widening schedule, which is coming through some of the design build office, we have I-20 from 49 to 60, and we're expected it to be complete sometime next month. And then 26 from 85 to 101 is currently under construction. So does anyone have any questions for me?
That was well done. We don't have a quorum. I was hoping somebody had some questions to stall. But that was a good update. A lot of good work by DOT.
What are you doing for us country cousins out there in the rural areas? This is all metropolitan.
Mr. Ledbetter, the question was, and that these were in the metropolitan areas. What about the rural areas? And is that not part of your area? Just give us an update, please, sir. The rural, your thoughts.
Yes, it is part of the area, but that wasn't part of our presentation. We did prepare it for the urban areas, but there are projects that are ongoing in the rural areas of CMCOG, and we can provide updates to those if there's something specifically that you're interested in. But like I said, this presentation was just geared towards the urban areas.
Certainly would be interested in that's ongoing in Fairfield County, upcoming for Fairfield County.
Sure. Yes, sir. I can look into that and give you an update on it. That's some of those projects are kind of handled by different construction offices, but we can check in and see what's going on up there.
Thank you.
Better. And maybe if Mr. Simmons, could y'all get together at one of our next meetings, you come back and do this same thing for the rural areas. That would be great. Mr. Simmons is nodding his head. He agrees.
Sure.
All right. That's good stuff. Y'all got any other questions?
The only question I want to know is, based on the cost estimates of all these projects, based on what we budgeted, and watching what petroleum is now doing and what it is going to do, how is that anticipated impacting the budget for these overall projects?
Mr. Ledbetter, did you hear that question?
I think I heard part of it, sir. If I understand the question, it was, have we taken into account the cost of rising petroleum costs? Is that kind of what?
Yes, sir.
Okay, so yes, sir. The way that we do our cost estimates is they're based off of past projects that have been let for construction. So past bids that we've seen from contractors. We keep a bid, what we call a bid tab, so bid histories for that. And there are contingencies that are built into the contract with some of those cost estimates that we provide. So essentially, we've taken a history of those projects that we've seen. But as far as like, depending on how future out, it can capture some of that, but there are contingencies to kind of consider, if that makes sense.
Yes, sir. All right, anything else?
We're still waiting. No questions, we're still waiting for. How do you see material costs and delay in material supplies affecting projects currently?
I can't speak for the whole state as a whole, but I know that we've seen some of the projects that material costs have went up. As to what percentage they've went up or anything like that, I'm not sure of the specifics, but I know that we have seen construction costs going up.
All right, very good. Good stuff. Thank you, Ms. Conley. And Ms. Weber, thanks for joining us today.
Thank you for having me.
Appreciate the good work. All right, we've been joined by one person online. We still need one more. If y'all can think of somebody to call, we'll thanks for getting Mr. Gary online. Let's go then to the next slide, Executive Director. Y'all pick one of y'all's folks, call them and put them on speakerphone. And by the way, I want to mention the SCAC, the Association of Counties, is today. So that's where some of our folks are. And that's why we're struggling.
All right, thank you, Mr. Chairman. A couple of things I wanted to mention. We do have a lot of new board members coming on board and have had a few since we did our last board orientation. So staff is planning on doing another board orientation in the next few weeks. We'll meet with all the new board members and we'll get to meet program directors and we'll give you an overview of everything. Also wanted to mention, in the past, you've heard about the Tiger and the Build grants. Now we are dealing with the RAISE grants, the Rebuilding American Infrastructure with Sustainability and Equity. These are grants that are for capital and investments in surface transportation. It's going to be at $1.5 billion available in FY22. These are grants available to our member governments, and in the past we have applied for some in past rounds. Applications are coming up pretty quickly, so we want to get this information out to you. They're due by April the 14th, but I think at the next month's meeting we'll be providing some additional information about this as well.
Well, that's great, because I would love to see some of that. We all would come to the Midlands.
It would be nice if we had some folks apply for that.
All right, and you'll be emailing that slide out so people get those details, and then we'll have a full presentation next month.
That's correct.
That is super.
Also wanted to mention in the ombudsman program, you might have seen in the paper that last Friday we were contacted that a resident had died at the Twilight Manor in West Columbia, and other residents were being moved. Our staff was on site very quickly within 30 minutes. There were 14 residents at this facility. What actually took place was the facility had no staff there to take care of the residents during the early morning hours. One of the residents actually called 911 for assistance, and law enforcement and the EMS arrived at the facility. When DHEC went to the facility, there were 3 citations that were issued. Of course, there was no staff there. There should have been 2. Residents were not getting their medications and not getting their meals, and the facility, unfortunately, still has a license to operate. I've got Ms. Anna Harmon here.
Yes, Ms. Harmon, do you have any comments you'd like to make?
This was a very unfortunate incident that occurred last Friday, and I really would like to thank Jessica Ray, Ombudsman. I was on my way out of town when I was called from the state office telling me that a resident had died, and Ms. Ray got there within 30 minutes, and after Ms. Ray got there, Ms. Victoria Addison met her there, and they had already left, but they had DSS and law enforcement there. Law enforcement took the lead on this particular situation. We did. And to be honest with you, many of the residents did not want to leave the facility. They considered the facility to be home, and law enforcement felt that it was in their best interest to leave, and so the DSS. so the residents initially went to a local church. And from there, they went to transition. Any of you familiar with transition with a shelter, and on Saturday, Pretoria followed up with them. There were 8 residents there at the time, but by Monday, they were all gone. And according to a call that we had, conference call we had with DSS, DHHS, and our state office, the residents were taken to a local hotel. So on Monday, I was able to go to the facility because the residents' belongings were being packed up to be taken to where they were going to be placed. And as of Monday, they were going to be placed to a facility in another region. I believe Greenville. They wanted to keep all the residents together since they're like a family. So as of yesterday, I was told that DSS no longer had custody of the residents. So as of this morning, we were trying to find out exactly if the residents will be returning to this facility or actually going to a facility in the United. So that's the most common thing.
So I appreciate you on top of that, sharing that with us. We're a tough situation. Mr. Hudson, you know, has interest in this, and you brought this up. Could you just address this for a minute? Some thoughts you had, Bill. You like us looking at ombudsman program.
Well, thank you, Ms. Harmon,
Yes,
and thank you, Mr. Chairman. We have to get my blood pressure down a little bit. Get my, after hearing what she said, I'll just say my piece and then we'll go from there. Joe Murgo's heard this before. My granddaddy taught me that how you look at your priorities in life is by looking at your checkbook. How you balance your checkbook. Where does the money go? Well, I can tell you the most vulnerable people in our life is your kids, your children, and your adults, and us being that. How in the world we can allow, as a COG, not funding as much as we can fund. We have 3 inspectors for 7,000 beds and 111 facilities. 3, and that includes Ms. Harmon. So that's 2. I think Ms. Harmon asked for an $80,000 increase in her budget for next year. And I just found that out during the break, and she probably don't get in trouble for telling me that. I'll take the heat. That's not enough. Because we should, in my opinion, I would appreciate the call to write a letter to our delegation, to our governor's office, to our lieutenant governor's office, which tried to been passed now for 15 years, and the insurance company shuts it down, that we have cameras at the entrance and exits, which is public entrance and exits, and in the public areas of the nursing home. I know right now, I can go look at my house and tell you who's in my backyard, and my front yard, and my side yard. My business is the same way. It is very inexpensive. The argument back in the past, Mr. Chairman, but not taking too much time, was the cost. That is no longer the case. What if somebody would have had a camera in this location? And we can't do it with 3 people. So my plea to the COG is I would appreciate maybe the COG considering penning a letter, asking for common sense, number 1. And number 2, that we fund this program as we would fund how we want to take care of our children and your dad and your mother. Lastly, in legislation, if you're not aware of it, you cannot sue a nursing home. Are you aware of that? You can't sue a nursing home. You have to go to mediation. Am I correct, Mr. Attorney? You could sue, but it's
Might be in the contract. You can sue.
okay. Getting a jury trial is on.
Well, I've done that too.
So I can just tell you that my attorney friend here will tell you it's almost impossible. Most people want it over with and done. The grieving process is absolutely heart-wrenching when you take someone, and I promise you I'll put hush, and you say, what is the best thing to do for my kid? You're gonna have that same choice. What is the best thing to do for my parents? And you're gonna have to take their driver's license. And you're gonna get to a point where you can't take care of them. You're gonna say, where's the best place to put them? And you make that decision. And that happens. And we're in a platform that we can do something about. I appreciate it. Thank you for listening to me. Yes, sir. And you do not get enough credit. You need more people. And it's happening every day in Lexington County and all over the state.
Mr. Hudson, we appreciate your thoughts and it's something
Piggyback
to
off of him.
continue to talk about. I'm sorry.
I'm gonna piggyback
Yes,
off
Ms.
of
Collins.
him. So, I don't know if any of y'all have ever been in Twilight Manor. I used to go there quite a bit, 25, 30 years ago, and it should have been closed down at that point in time. So I don't know how the process works to move here. And whoever's responsible for this, and the inspections and his funding that needs to be done, and that makes this board responsible. And that costs probably about $3,000 a month to somebody, for someone to stay at Twilight Manor. And I'm sorry, I'm a little emotional.
It's an emotional issue.
I grew up with a handicapped child, but we kept it home, and I refused to put in a place like this. And a death, as horrible as it is not nearly as horrible as the abuse and torture they suffer in places like this. So we've got 3 inspectors for how many places?
1,100 beds, 111 located.
We should be ashamed of ourselves.
Appreciate you all's input. It's something we'll continue to talk about and discuss further in the future. All right,
Mr. Chairman, Lynn Starkey's now joined by phone.
great. And
Very
Will,
good.
who do you have? Mr. Green?
Mr. Garrett's on.
Mr. Garrett.
He's on Zoom.
Super. Well, I appreciate y'all reaching out. Thank you, Mr. Murga. And just remember that because you're here today, we're going to have a board. And so we're going to go back to the top of our agenda. And thanks for those that joined in. Y'all have saved the day for us. All right. We've done a lot of information stuff, but we haven't done any action. Item number 2 was approve the order and contents of the overall agenda. Y'all see the agenda in front of you. Is there a motion to approve the overall agenda?
So moved.
Mr. McLeod, second, I believe, Mr. Lively. You are in favor of that, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Agenda is approved. We've done indication. New board members, chairman's introduction. Consent agenda. You all see the consent agenda in front of you, board minutes and congestion management plan. Is there a motion to approve the consent agenda?
Move for
Make the
approval.
motion.
Mr. Davis, Mr. McMeegan, any questions or discussion?
I have one thing. I attended the last meeting, but I wasn't listening.
Okay,
So,
we will make that correction.
okay, I didn't want to approve before.
I'm glad you spoke up. That happened to be, it hurts to be left out, so I understand. It wasn't in the cog, it was somewhere else. That hurt my feelings. So I'm glad you spoke up. But I tell you what, Victoria does a phenomenal job. at this,
Oh, I'm
Victoria.
sure.
She does. I'm watching this thing up here more. We got sheets and all kinds of stuff. Appreciate you lifting that out. All right. Anything else that needs to be corrected? All right, if you're in favor of approving the consent agenda, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, and the consent agenda is approved. Regular agenda, item number 1, quarterly financial status, second quarter fiscal year 2022. Mr. Ben Malton, you sent out a sheet, folks in front of us have the green sheet to review the board about. And then,
I also emailed out the updated unaudited financial status report through December 31, 2021. For the folks that are online, you can also see that as a slide. Just a couple of things that I wanted to note, that we are still in the process of submitting, and we have submitted requests for reimbursement to some of our regional programs that we have not received payment for this time. Under our consultants and contracts, some of those projects have not moved as quickly as we had hoped in our area. We're actively filling several positions in the aging program, as well as in finance and in our planning area. And we are planning on bringing a budget revision to the board in the near future to address some of these line items. We have several large capital improvement projects that we're underway at the COG. We have to update. Unfortunately, Microsoft is requiring us to update our servers and server platforms, as well as we have planned to do some major projects around the office, including some furniture for the boardroom, which we've put on hold due to.
Well, Ben and I visited CMCOG this week prepared for this meeting, and we're meeting here. And so I don't know, we need to upgrade our tables and chairs just around the boardroom, and the carpet in the office is kind of rolled up, and I think the staff would agree it's time to freshen up the amenities there at the office versus us coming once a month sometime in the future. So Ben's going to pursue those office improvements.
Yeah. And, you know, as things are opening up, staff are also going to start to go and do some traveling in our aging program. There's a few folks that are signed up to go, for instance, that's starting back up again as well.
All right, questions on the financial status report?
Just out of my ignorance, what, can you explain to me what is in that line, fringe recovery?
Fringe and indirect. So that would be the indirect costs or items that would not charged directly to any of our programs. Fringe would be like insurance and stuff.
She said, once, no way, I'm going to stay till the next.
Mr. Brennan.
And do we own the COG building?
Yes, sir, we do on that. Yes, sir, that's been paid off.
I didn't know that. Like that. Good question.
There's someone trying to mention something.
Someone online had a question? With no other questions, is there a motion to approve the quarterly financial status report? Mr. Liming. There's a second. Second, Dr. Raines, thank you for hosting. Appreciate it. We named you best friends of COG. You and Ms. Tech. Any other questions or discussion? If not, if you're in favor for approving the financial status report, second quarter, please say aye.
Aye.
And if you're opposed. And the financial report is approved. Item number 2 in regular agenda, 2020-2027 TIP amendment, Lower Saluda Greenway. Enclosure 4 in your packet. Gregory Sprouse is going to introduce this program. By the way, Gregory has been with the COG 19 years. He started at the age of 16. He's been here. He is our Director of Research, Planning, and Development. Mr. Sprouse, that's what you do. The floor is yours.
Stand up here, Jason. Y'all hear me okay?
Yes.
Today, we're requesting approval to amend the 2020-2027 TIP to add $1.5 million in non-federal funding for the Lower Saluda Greenway project. Last year, the board approved the Lower Saluda Greenway feasibility study, which assessed the feasibility of developing a 10.5-mile pathway along the north side of the Saluda River. And the purpose of this project, as defined in that feasibility study, is to increase safety, accessibility, and regional connectivity between nearby parks, trails, neighborhoods, activity centers, and other regional destinations. So just to remind everyone of the scope of the project and to demonstrate its importance in terms of regional significance, you can see the map over here that the project will provide a critical link between the Lake Murray Dam, Saluda Shoals Park, and the existing portions of the Three Rivers Greenway in downtown Columbia. So I just wanted to take a minute, for those of you that may not be familiar with the existing greenway as it stands today. This is a multi-use pathway that currently extends along the river system from the Columbia Canal, the diversion dam just south of I-20 on the Broad River, down to Riverfront Park in Columbia, in downtown Columbia. And then on the Lexington County side of the river, it extends from just north of Jarvis Platinum Boulevard through West Columbia and Casey, with connectivity to State Street, Knox Avenue Drive, and then goes all the way down to Concrete Creek Heritage Preserve, almost to I-77. So we already currently have a pretty extensive greenway system that's been developed and is widely used. And then the most recent portion of the greenway, which I believe officially opened last year, is in front of Riverbank Zoo, just across the interstate from our office on Greystone. And this portion of the greenway currently runs from Boyd Island at the confluence of the Broad and Saluda Rivers all the way up to I-26. There is currently plans underway to build bridges across the Congaree to connect Boyd Island area to downtown Columbia. And then another pedestrian bridge that would connect from where it stops at I-26 across the Saluda to West Columbia near Lexington Medical Center. So you can see that this project, this portion that we're talking about, that we're asking to be put into the TIP, will provide important connections from the Johnny Jeffcoat walkway along the Lake Murray Dam, all the way to eventually to downtown Columbia once those bridges are built. It'll also provide lots of important connectivity in the Lexington and Irmo areas and connecting it with all these other destinations. And so then another important thing to note about where we are with this project is that once it's built, it'll also provide a lot of potential for other connections to amenities in the area. So there's the potential to have it directly connect from Saluda Shoals Park to Mungo Park, which is the former Rawls Creek golf course in the Irma area. Seven Oaks Park and Lee Park Elementary School will have pretty close connectivity, as well as the new active recreation fields at Saluda Shoals Park just off of St. Andrews Boulevard. And then there's a lot of different commercial areas that will have the potential to connect into this greenway. So Harbison Boulevard, of course, being the biggest one, but there's also a lot of older commercial areas along this corridor that this could be really great boom for, including clusters of Whitehall, Market Point Center, and Bush River Village. And so this feasibility study that we did last year that the board approved evaluated alternative alignments for this greenway project and ended up with a recommended planning level alignment, and then provided all of the recommendations for the needed boardwalks, bridges, trailheads, lighting, call boxes, and all the other things that go into a greenway project like this. And also want to mention that through this development of this study, as well as a lot of other ongoing public engagement, that we've had a lot of very positive and robust public support for this project during the feasibility study. I think we had over 3,000 public interactions, most of which were providing really strong support for the project. And finally, this feasibility study provided us with an implementation strategy and planning level cost estimates to get us through preliminary engineering right of way and construction. So basically where we are today is the project partners under the leadership of Irma Chapin Recreation Commission are actively working to develop a range of funding strategies to implement this project. And so by adding it to the TIP as a regionally significant project, it'll help us to better position us to seek a range of funding opportunities as they come. So to conclude, I just want to say that the project partners consider this to be a regionally significant project that will help to grow the Three Rivers Greenway system into a regional outdoor recreational destination and position it to be a catalyst for economic growth in the area, much like the Swamp Rabbit Trail has done for Greenville and surrounding areas in that part of the state. That I'll take any questions. And,
I have a question.
Go ahead.
Todd Beasley here. I have a question. I appreciate the information. I think one of the questions we had last year was the long-term sustainability of this with Saluda Shoals and the Rangers in funding this. So I appreciate that due diligence was just spoken about, giving that some consideration. But one of the disconnects that I do see with this project is the fact that you do mention some of the aging, kind of older commercial sites. There's a little bit of a disconnect between this because we're promoting pedestrian and bike friendly traffic through these trails, but what are we going to be doing to connect these trail systems in a safe manner to these commercial sites? You see in our enclosures, we've got little Newberry in the back, really progressively looking at a pedestrian and bike pathway. So how are we going to help alleviate some of the road congestion and really push progressively the connectivity of these trail systems by making it safely connected to the commercial sites that we're envisioning these folks connecting to?
Mr. Sprouse.
Yeah, that's a great point, and I think that's part of the overall planning objective. As this project moves forward, there's a lot of opportunities to look at intersection improvements and other types of bike and pedestrian safety improvements that will help bridge that connectivity between many of these areas and the trail as it develops out. And so this feasibility study did take some of that into consideration and made some recommendations on some of these longer term potential connections into the trail once it's developed. But most of that can be accommodated with different types of intersection improvements and other types of. So I think that's a very good point, and that's something that goes into this longer term planning process.
Mr. Beasley, good question. Mr. Sprassel, as you are taking that into consideration, continue to. What other questions y'all got?
I do have another question too regarding the amount of traffic that is starting to be seen on the Saluda Riverwalk section between bikers and pedestrians. It's that situation is going to continue to grow and potentially pose as a dangerous situation. So are we going to start considering the possibility of actually making bike lanes versus pedestrian lanes on these systems as the traffic increases?
Mr. Sprass.
So the feasibility study, one of the recommendations for the future design of it is to develop it to federal ASHTO standards, which does take that into consideration. The trend in planning for these types of greenways does try to promote wider trails to be able to accommodate that future growth. So that again is something I think that is being taken into consideration as the project develops further.
I guess my last question, Saluda Shoals is a fee-based park. How is that going to be navigated with this trail system going through Saluda Shoals?
I do not have an answer to that question. I know it's something that has come up before, but Irma Chapin Recreation Commission is the agency that's taking the lead on this and taking ownership of the project. So I know that they have taken that into consideration, and I'm sure they've got some ideas about how to address that.
And can we make sure they're not online today? All those questions are relayed to them, please, Mr. Sprass? Absolutely. I think that's a good question. What else y'all got? Not?
Yes, quick question.
Please.
I've been excited to hear about this, and I reached out to my friends, and I know this has been in progress since the 90s, and they were all excited about how Irma Chapin Recreation is really taking the lead on this and how their steps forward and how they envision this project. So it's great to hear that. Could you provide a link to the entire report? I think we just got the executive somewhere.
Mr. Sprass, is there an entire report?
Absolutely. It's on our webpage, but we can send out a direct link to it.
Super. All right, and this is the first money to be allocated to this. Is that correct?
Correct. And these are, clarify, these are local dollars. So this is funding that the ICRC already has.
Just out of curiosity, are there federal grants through the different bills that have come through that we could reach out for?
That is one of the reasons why it's important that we take this step, so that as those opportunities become available, we can pursue them.
Super. And because y'all are here today, we made a quorum by the exact number, we can get moving. If there is a motion to do this.
I made a motion to approve.
Mr. Burga, is there a second? Second.
Where does the city line end and the Irma Recreation line begin? So I guess the other consideration is the city of Columbia looking at funding to increase their ranger presence as well.
I believe that entire section that's currently open up to I-26 is under City of Columbia's jurisdiction. And from there, I think it would be, from there on up, as this develops, is what would be under the leadership of Irma Chapin Recreation Commission.
Thank you.
Anything else?
Can you address security? Will there be an interface between the municipalities and the counties involved? Where you have safety provided, where the individual citizen could quickly access some form of security along the route?
Lighting and call boxes have all been taken into consideration as a part of this feasibility study. Of course, all those details will be ironed out as the project moves forward in terms of engineering and design. But just in terms of precedent, all the local governments that currently operate the existing sections all coordinate really well and provide a lot of good security along the existing portion. So the idea is that coordination will continue as we move on up the river.
And I tell you what, there's obviously a lot of interest and excitement about this, Ben and Mr. Sprouse. Maybe in one of our future meetings in the next few months, we could have 10, maybe ICI, Recreation Commission could come and answer some more of these questions as we get excited about it. And hopefully allocate this first money right here in a second. Anything else? If not, if you were in favor of allocating the $1.5 million for the non-federal funding for the regionally significant Lower Saluda Greenway, please say aye.
Aye.
And if you're opposed, and that passes unanimously, and that's exciting. Thank y'all. Item number 3, 2020-2027 COAPS NPO guideline. Mr. Reginald Simmons, enclosure 5 in your programs.
Staff is requesting first reading approval to amend the 2020 to 2027 MPO TIP, also the 2020 to 2027 RPO, Rural Planning Organization TIP, that following voucher allocation beginning in FY 2022 for CMCOG Rural TIP. It will increase to $4 million per year. For the Coast MPO Urban TIP, it will be $21.9 million per year.
So we're glad to have this extra money come through. And Mr. Simmons, one thing that we talked about, and I'd like you to address it, please, a little bit, are the COG looking at some smaller projects. Could you talk about that, please? Just to hit some, talk about that, please.
As part of taking a multimodal transportation planning approach, the general idea is that you start with smaller projects to address the needs that are identified within your region. The more work that you can do with low cost, smaller projects is going to benefit the amount of money that you see on an annual basis. Once you get to the bigger capacity projects such as road widening projects, on average today, those projects are running $35–40 million. So they take a lot of money to develop, they take a lot of time to develop, they start a process procedures to go through. But when you can do smaller intersection improvement projects, signal improvement projects, that gives you a greater benefit to apply more projects across the region and address the larger part of your transportation network.
All right, that's something DOT is encouraging, is that correct?
Yes, sir.
And that's something you're thinking about. And that's something I think our board hopefully will be seeing and encouraging as well. And our transportation committee is more of the smaller projects that can have some effect throughout the Midlands. All right, so y'all seen that we got more money.
Move for approval to accept.
Mr. Davis, is there a second? Mr. McLeod. All right, any questions? All right, y'all hear about that? Allocated, if you're in favor of that, please say aye. Opposed? And that is approved. Item number 4. Bike and pedestrian master plan, City of Newberry, Mr. Simmons.
Staff is requesting first reading approval to amend the 2022 and 2023 Rural Planning Work Program or RPWP to add the City of Newberry Bike and Pedestrian Master Plan. The RPWP is a planning document that's developed by CMCOG that identifies transportation plan activities that occur in the upcoming fiscal year. CMCOG has been approached by the City of Newberry to consider a complete streets initiative and develop a bike and pedestrian master plan. This means that future transportation projects will make the street network better and safer for people walking, biking, driving, riding transit, and moving actively with assisted devices, making the community a better place to live. Our coordination and collaboration with ACDOT, the Newberry Local Transit Services, and the general public, CMCOG will develop a bike and pedestrian master plan. We will assist in the management and procurement of this plan. And with the inclusion of this project in the RPWP, it will allow CMCOG to develop details in preparation to complete this project. We will request to include our technical assistance to the development of the City of Newberry Bike and Pedestrian Master Plan in our current FY 2022 and 2023 Rural Planning Work Program. Happy to answer any questions.
All right, is there a motion for this?
I make a motion to approve the plan.
Can I believe?
Second.
Second, Mr. Hall. Quick note, Newberry is an old town. It was built with narrow streets for the most part, as far as having bike lanes, there's not much room, so we struggle with that. So I appreciate this being considered. Maybe we can do better. I actually had I thought a great idea that got turned down a couple of months ago. College Street is one of the 3 primary roads in Newberry. Goes by Newberry College downtown. There's sidewalk on each side. One side is primarily walk, the other is really not. So I suggested to DOT, how about we make that a bike lane? Instead of sidewalk, it's the street, it's the grass, it's sidewalk. It's where you put a bike lane. And DOT said they wouldn't do that. I was very disappointed because in these old towns like Newberry, there's a lot of old sidewalks, quite frankly. I think that really help these little towns increase their bike path availability, but at this point, DOT is not willing to do that. Maybe down the road at some point they will. All right, y'all heard a motion in a second. Is there any more discussion or questions? If not, if you're in favor of this, adding City of Newberry Bike and Pedestrian Master Plan, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you. All right, again, let's keep on going. That's all the action items we did. Mr. Ledbetter, Executive Director reports, you've done that. Let's go down to something I asked you to add. Old and new business. We have talked about making internet accessibility as emphasis area for this board and for sharing ideas. When do we get to is this it? That's the FCC? It's a little small up there. All right, so the FCC has a program to save people that are on SNAP or Medicaid or one of the other government programs. They can get $30 per month for internet service. And so Ben will send out a link to the FCC website. They just have to qualify pretty easily if they're already on one of those programs. And then they can go to like Spectrum or AT&T and they can get the $30 goes from the federal government to AT&T or Spectrum or True Vista or whoever. And instead of getting a $50 bill per month, they get a $20 bill invoice per month. So I think it's a great program. It was called the Emergency Broadband Program in the fall. Last year, not many people did it nationally. So I hope more will do it here in the Midlands. I would suggest that you let your housing authorities know, your senior resources such as Ms. Stockman, aid agencies, because it will help them, help their clients save $360 a year, and all they have to do is sign up. So thank you all for that. Next one, please. If somebody Googles like Spectrum, affordable connectivity program, that Spectrum has a website, AT&T, etc. All right, and y'all know that we've talked about broadband. I just want to get on my soapbox as I am big on fast internet. We had a gentleman from ORS a couple months ago. Y'all remember Mr. Jim Spritsinger? He's leading some effort. There are multiple efforts. My message today is let's don't wait around for somebody else. I do spend a good bit of time in the upstate. My wife's from Anderson, and our partner in Newberry on internet is from the Abbeville area and works in that area. They are doing a lot of good things in that area. As I kind of pay attention to these things, that corner of Oconee, Pickens County, Anderson County, they are making a lot of real efforts to have broadband fiber in those areas. In this article here that Ben put up, Anderson County put out a request for proposal, and now they have a $175 million program to bring broadband fiber to the rural areas of Anderson County. And it's done through Blue Ridge Electric Cooperative and WC Tail, who we work with. If you're a Clemson fan and go to any Clemson games, you will hear the Upcountry Fiber commercials and see David Sweeney as their spokesman. They are making a great effort in that corner of South Carolina, and I believe they'll be the leaders in the state as a community or as a region having internet fiber. So I would suggest that you are here, and if your community, look at something similar. I think our governments and communities should be aggressive in researching this. Maybe you want to call your providers. 5 years ago, we called ours in Newberry and said, are you going to spend any money in Newberry? And they said, no, I'm not. And so we went out and did our own thing. You may want to do something like that. Can the local governments help is a question I wrote. The electric co-ops doing a lot of great things, people like Carolina Connect. But this is $175 million in Anderson County. Mr. Spritsinger is getting $400 million from the state allocation. All right, that's $400 million for the whole state. Just this little project is in Anderson is $175 million. That state money, in my opinion, is not going very far. So I would not wait around. Look at your community and see what you might could do to initiate some change. All right, that's my soapbox for today. Ben, what else we got? Old and new business. Y'all might remember last meeting, Mr. Burns, Kershaw County, and I had a discussion during the meeting. He and I had a nice lunch since. And we had a good conversation. He expressed his concerns about Kershaw County, which is part of Coates, that about Central Midlands Council of Governments in Kershaw County, specifically about transportation projects. So we have a follow-up meeting about that, but we did have a nice conversation, and we'll continue that conversation with him. Ben, what else we got?
The only thing I have is the next meeting is going to be here, March 24th.
Mr. Brandon.
Ben, what is the program for the senior volunteers that we've been requesting?
That's been volunteer
Yes,
program?
yes. Can you, I'd like to, and I think all local governments need to get the word out via our press partnerships, social media. So I'd like to connect with the City of Columbia marketing team, and let's get some TV coverage. Mayor Sin can drive down to WS Studios hopefully and do a nice interview with you, Ben.
Willie, you're much better on TV.
But I think that's just very important to get the word out on that.
That's a good idea.
Victoria is the coordinator of the volunteer program, so.
I'll follow up with you.
That'd be great. I say y'all will be watching your local channels. That's great, Will. So volunteer for that, and let's publicize it. Let's get more volunteers. We also talked about today looking at the money allocation. We'll be looking at that. We also talked about publicizing the volunteers. We're going to look at rural reports from Mr. Ledbetter in the future. Also, executive committee earlier talked about looking at other towns about the bike systems. We'll talk about that as well. Y'all got anything else?
Mr. Mayor?
Yes, sir.
I would like to see the COG take the forward effort for the state and intermodal travel transportation, particularly from the port of Charleston to the Greenville area. We have a viable railroad system now in that region going from Charleston. That would, an intermodal system established with terminals on both ends, and maybe one in this area, would take thousands of 18-wheelers off of our interstate, which would obviously decrease cost, maintenance and so forth.
You mean like the Greer upstate?
Yes.
Container port, doing something like that in the Midlands?
Yes, but we also need to have the state upgrade the rail system to encourage the use of intermodal.
That's a good thought.
Mr. Mayor, for what it's worth, the director of the port in Charleston was our speaker at the Columbia Rotary Club, I don't know, a couple of weeks ago, maybe 3. And I was fascinated to learn that the rail connection between the Charleston port and what is it, BMW, all the stuff around Greer goes from Charleston to Florence and up close to Charlotte, not all the way to Charlotte, and then over like that. It does not go right up I-26 like it seemingly should, or some effort should be made to do that. I'm not suggesting that this group take that on, but it was a fascinating fact to learn, and certainly something that we need to, as Mr. Hall says, need to do something about over the years.
We'll put that on our list, research a little bit, talk about the future. If there's nothing else, thank y'all for coming today. Is there a motion to adjourn? Motion, we have a second. If not, you in favor of adjourning, please say aye.
Aye.
Mr. Ritson, well done. Thank you, sir. I told you.